Dr. Robert Klitzman joins me now. He's a professor of clinical psychiatry at Columbia University and a specialist in bioethics. Dr. Klitzman, thanks for joining us. So, Victor Escobar has become the first man in Colombia to be euthanized despite having a medical condition that was not terminal. What kind of ethical questions does that raise for the medical fraternity, given that doctors actually take an oath to save lives?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's an unfortunate case. I think that the principle of what many of us prefer to call physician aid in dying is that if there's someone who has, say, terminal cancer and they know they're going to die in a few months and they've tried pain medicine and everything available and they just are still in huge pain, they're unable to do things they want to do, and they say, you know, I've had enough. That at a certain point, the notion of being able to end that person's suffering, we believe that people have a right to do that in certain circumstances, and that is better than keeping them alive in pain when there's nothing else that could be done to help them. So I think that's the principle behind physician aid in dying. I would add that there are different ways that this might be done and different terms that are used. So euthanasia refers to anyone giving anyone something that may end their life, whereas physician aid in dying, which is used and followed in certain states in the United States, is where a physician will say to the patient or family member, here's a prescription that the patient has asked for. If and when the patient decides that they've had enough, they can take this prescription. So it's the patient often who is the one making the decision, I should say. And an important element is that there's no other treatment available. So I don't know the details of this case in Colombia. I would hope that he was getting enough pain medicine as he was able to tolerate, that he was made as comfortable as possible, and that those kinds of alternatives are available.
Where do you draw the line between ending a person's suffering in a case like this and, you know, allowing him to end his life where the illness is not terminal?
Well, this is where again, I don't know the details of the case of Mr. Escobar other than those that have been reported in the media and that you all have reported, et cetera. So I don't know the details. In the United States, at least, we have certain safeguards to make sure that this process is not misused. So we have someone, the patient, say at different points, 6 months apart, yes, this is what I want to do. Or at two different points, we have a psychiatrist evaluate the person to ensure that it's not just that the person's depressed, in which case we could use antidepressants to treat them. So there are certain safeguards like that. And I personally, I think that saying when the person is terminally ill that they only have 6 months to live makes sense. I'm a little less sure, or a little less comfortable, I should say, in cases where it's just suffering. Because there's a lot that we can do to mitigate suffering. And I'm not sure that everything was done. In other words, you want to avoid a situation where people say, look, there's no other treatment for me. I'm only going to get this much morphine and I need this much, and so I'll prefer to end my life. That would be a very unfortunate situation.
There is a legal argument as well. The Colombia Supreme Court made that decision, allowing it to be applied to people who suffer intense physical and psychological pain. I mean, is that a valid argument?
Well, I would put after the court statement, intense physical psychological pain, which cannot in any way be treated. Because if the person's in pain, and in fact we could treat the pain, they would be doing better. So you want to make sure, again, I don't know the level of healthcare services in Colombia. I would hope that they're sufficient, that there would be adequate pain relief, adequate treatment for depression, things like that, et cetera. So I think as a physician, I think as you started out the segment saying, we have duties to help patients. And so we want to balance the patient's right to say, yes, I want to die, with making sure that we've done everything we can to try to prevent or reduce their suffering. And so that's a key element that I would hope would be part of decisions that courts and others would make.